thank you everybody who is hanging out with us here today. We've got 17 people in the audience. No doubt some people on YouTube. Well, maybe in the future anyway. I'm Donald. I'm a mod here on the Playdate Squad Discord, and I'm also a developer on the game Comet. Zach, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Zach. I'm working on the game Diora, which is in the. We all have devlogs here in the server, or most of us do, I think, and mine is in there. So yeah, you can see all sorts of stuff from that.
Nice. Simply.
It's really good.
Yeah, I'm Simply in Dev, or Justin. I'm the developer of Reflector and Stream. I'm currently working on Ribbit Rogue, so love the frog theming. But yeah.
Nice. So, three of us here, we're kind of going to host this chat with Mario and JP. We'll get you guys to introduce yourselves in just a very quick second here. For everybody that's watching live on Discord, for most of this, it'll be us talking, but once we kind of get through our kind of a bit of an agenda that we have, we'll kind of open the floor up for the craziness at the end, for anybody to jump in, use your voice, and ask questions, and have a general Q&A towards the end of this. So, we've got the guys from Amano Games. Is that how you pronounce that?
Yeah.
Awesome. Mario, do you want to introduce yourself first?
Mario might not be hearing you.
Oh no.
I think I'm not hearing someone because everything.
I don't think you're hearing Donald because yeah. So you missed out on all the intro.
Oh, it's so funny. Okay, JP, do you want to tell Mario to leave and come back?
Mario, leave and come back, please.
And then JP,
you're banished from this.
Go ahead and introduce yourself.
I didn't look up, but I don't hear anything.
Okay, yeah. Okay, he's gone. Cool. So my name is JP. I'm half of Amano. That's our little studio. We are two game devs based in Mexico City, and we like to make little games on our free time. We've been working on mobile games for about 10 years, and we started doing Pico 8 games around the time the pandemic started. And we moved on from small Pico games to Playdate when, fortunately, Mario could get his hands on one of the dev preview models for the device, and we've been working on Pullfrog for a while now, on and off, because we started doing different projects. But yeah, I do the art and the music and do some game design, and Mario does programming and also game design. We kind of collaborate together doing that, and Pullfrog is the result of our experimenting with the Playdate. It's actually the port of one of our Pico 8 games, and yeah, I mean, I guess I gave more of an intro, more about myself than just but
yeah, we've got questions to ask about the history of you guys working together and all that sort of stuff. Here we go. AFK is now a speaker. That's good. Mario, do you want to see if you can?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Wonderful. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes. Well, I'm Mario. I'm the other half of Amano Games. I'm programmer, and yeah, I think everything else is what JB said. So that's pretty much it.
Nice. Well, I'm kind of keen to maybe, and JP, you talked about this a little bit in your intro, but just talk a little bit more around your history as a game studio. Then we'll talk about maybe the history of Pullfrog, and then kind of how it came to be on the Playdate. Just kind of give you guys a rough idea of kind of where I think we're going. Let me go ahead and share. Oh, apparently I can't share my screen. That's right. For the people watching at home, I've got the website up at the moment for Amano Games. So you guys said you formed around the pandemic?
Yes. That's right. We were part of. We have a little indies community for Spanish-speaking countries, or Spanish-speaking folk. So in that community, a Pico 8 club formed, and we joined in. And Mario started making little games, and I had no clue about programming. I mean, I've been working on games, but I've never done any any programming, so I started using Pico 8 as an excuse to kind of get my hands on that. And one of the first things I programmed was kind of like the very crude platforming physics of the first Bullfrog, and then Mario took over and like helped me, do it right, and that's kind of where the original version for Bullfrog came. But yeah, we started doing games. Yeah, it was early 2020, I think.
Nice. Aramis,
We met each other like.
I was just going to say, I'm not sure if you can pause a second and bring up these websites that are happening in the chat while we talk about them. Yeah, so you're saying?
Yeah, we met like 10 years ago. We started working in a company called Hyperbeard Games, doing mobile games.
Okay.
One of our first games was called Kleptocats, which was a mobile game. And when we started doing this, it was right in the middle of the pandemic, and a friend of ours started this Pico 8 club where the plan was to make one game a month. And I started doing the series of Lazy Dev to make
yes,
a roguelike.
I know the ones.
I think it was. Yes, and I started doing like a demo of a tower defense with kind of roguelike elements, but at the end it wasn't like a roguelike, it was just like a tower defense turn-based movement or something. It's in our itch page called By Rush. And that was our first game, and then the second was Pullfrog. And the dynamic of the club was to make one game a month, and each month there was like 2 wars that were the theme for that month. And with Pullfrog it was frogs and cactus. So the idea of Pullfrog, it was just like a frog that needs to run away from cacti that was falling down. And we just like Tetris in general, so it was hard to not use Tetris pieces as the blocks that were falling down. And I think like the first day that we had that, it was like, oh, you should move the pieces with your tongue somehow, and that's how Pullfrog kind of was born.
Wow. Going back a little bit to the club, was this club from a group of friends, or something that was kind of open to the city or the location you were living in?
It was open to
for the
anyone.
Discord server. I'm sorry. We kind of have a lag situation with Mario and me, so this tends to happen. But yeah, go ahead, Mario.
No, it was it was open to anyone. It was mainly like Spanish-speaking people because it originated from a community of Spanish-speaking people. So
Yes.
but it was open to anyone. Yeah, on Discord.
Nice. And you two were friends
Yeah.
when you joined the club, or you met in this club?
No, we were friends way before. We met back in I don't know, I guess 2013-ish. Yeah, that's kind of we worked together on different games. At one point, Mario kind of left the studio we were working at, and we always kind of wanted to make different games because the mobile games we're working on are basically idle games, so that's not kind of the kind of stuff we want to play or we actually like to make. So we always had this itch to make more kind of gamey games, the kind of things you find in places like Pico 8. So it kind of just everything fell into place, and we started making these small little games. But also what happened is on the first little game, we did like a month easy, right? We developed it for a month, left it just the way we wanted it in that time. Pullfrog, we also finished it in a month, but we polished it for a little bit longer because we wanted to be really tight. And the third game we made on Pico 8 was The Lost Night, which actually took us like 6 months to finish because we wanted to like do a whole RPG system and explorable rooms, and it got way out of scope really fast. So it tends to happen with the games you start developing. We think, oh, we're just gonna work on that for like a couple of weeks or maybe like a month, and then we start adding ideas and things quickly get out of hand. So it's kind of, we have to really be focused on dialing things down and getting everything ready for like a set deadline. Otherwise we could add stuff to games forever.
We got drunk with power because with Pullfrog at the end we were running out of tokens in Pico 8, and with the RPG with the Lost Night we were like, oh, if we develop this system where everything is a string, then there is no tokens, so we can make an unlimited game. And then we realized that you had also a character limit, and we hit that pretty pretty easily. So we had this idea of like a massive map with a lot of rooms and NPCs and dialogue, and we had to cut like half of it because of the of the character limits of Big 8.
So was that content
So-
that
so
you'd built to some extent that you then just, you know, had to cut?
JP did all the whole map and did like the whole layout of the rooms and the map. I don't think dialogue was in, but definitely the overall structure of the map. And like the idea was to put a lot of NPCs so it didn't felt as empty. And at the end, we had to cut that. But yeah, mostly
Mostly
like layout
dialogues.
stuff.
Yeah, like dialogues were really hard. We wanted to have like a whole story in the game and a lot of story-based content, but in the end, it was just really hard to keep the character limit down. So we ended up, compromising and cutting off. Gameplay-wise, it was kind of simple. It wasn't very. It was kind of like a shoot 'em up, and it didn't really grow too much. And the map was pretty vast, but towards the end of the game, like there are very few NPCs as opposed to like the beginning of the game, because that's where we concentrated most of the writing, and then we ran out of space, so we had to like finish it quick. But yeah, it was fun. It's always like we discovered that working with limitations has always been like a very interesting space for us, because there's always problems to solve, and we always have to find like creative solutions to the limitations of things. So that's why I think also working on the Playdate has been like really fun for us. Even though we've been working on Pullfrog on and off for a long time, and right now we're trying to develop a different game. The Playdate feels right at home, solving like performance limitations or like rendering issues that we're kind of playing with right now. Yeah, it's a good space for us.
Yeah, it seems like that amount of limitations seems to draw a lot of developers to the Playdate. And speaking of that, what kind of made you realize the Playdate was a thing, and how'd you find out about it and to decide to develop Pullfrog on it?
So we heard about the Playdate from the announcement, I think, both of us, and we applied to the developer preview. But like, funny enough, a friend of mine who's a UI designer, we were working on a web company at the time, and both of us applied to the developer preview, and he got one of the developer units. And for a year, he was telling me like, "Oh, we should make a game or something in this." And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Just tell me when." And the first year of the dev unit was a little bit harsh because there wasn't like a lot of content or community. So my friend, who wasn't a programmer, he wanted more like a Playdate for the games, not really for development. So after a year of like trying and not really getting anywhere, he told me like, "Oh, I'm just gonna sell it to you, and you do something with JP," because he also knows JP. And he sold it to me, and that's when we started working on Pullfrog. We said like, "Oh, let's make a small project, like something that we know is gonna take us like 1 month to finish." And 2 years later, we finished.
Here
it.
we are. Yeah.
And so, I guess you guys have talked a little bit about the history of Pullfrog, but I understand you guys started development and then stopped, right? And I kind of, what's the right way of saying this? I, in some ways, have felt like, not that I'm responsible for checking on the community, but I have this kind of sensed in my own self that like, I know somebody's making this game, I'm going to check in and ask how they're doing or how it's going. And so around this time last year, around GDC, and this might have been somewhat related to actually Andrew and I making the Playdate Awards last year, but I checked in on one of you guys and said, "Hey, what's happening with Pullfrog?" And I don't know, do you guys want to maybe tell a bit of that story from your perspective?
Sure. So this is about like Panic reaching out to us right after that, right?
Well, I'm not sure. Yeah, actually, I'd forgotten that part. Okay, so maybe I asked something live out on Twitter, and somebody reached out. I can't actually remember the series of events.
Yeah, okay.
I do
yeah.
remember the series of events.
ahead.
So yeah, we stopped working on Pullfrog because like we were working on it, and then Panic released this thing about maybe doing a season 2 and maybe doing like an online store. They put up a form if you were interested in like publishing the game with them, and we sent Pullfrog and never heard back. In hindsight, we didn't even like try it again. We just said like fill the form and then assume that they got it, and never even like got an email like, oh, we got it or anything.
They were asking
and we were
like,
just, like,
you wanted funding, right?
yeah, if you wanted funding, and we never asked or anything. So we were a little bit tired of working on Pullfrog at that point, just in like development cycle. So we were like, oh, let's try something else a little bit while we wait for Panic to tell us something about it. Yeah, to see if they're interested or not.
And was the impetus to waiting? Was it more about, oh, let's have a break, or trying to see if there would potentially be some funding opportunities there?
So, like at the moment,
a little bit of both.
yeah, it was a little bit of both. The scope was very different. So the game we wanted to make was like Pullfrog, but on steroids, like the Picoed version, but way better, right? So we had an idea for doing like levels and bosses and kind of like a more roguelike element, and you know, it was a much bigger game what we had planned.
Amazing.
And at the moment, all we had was like the port of Pullfrog on like working on the Playdate, and a little bit more polished, but it was kind of like the basic version. So yeah, it was that, and also we were a little bit tired of working on that, and then we were just let's wait for Panic to respond. You know, if we got funding, we could really finish this game and really focus on it. So we're gonna wait for them to say something, and then that waiting for something turned into like 6 months. We started working on another game that wasn't for like Pico 8 or anything. We were experimenting with Godot as an engine, and we got to the point where we liked the game enough that we took it to a game development event in Europe, and we got the Steam what's it called, the wish list thing going on Steam, and we were all like, Pullfrog kind of got relegated into the nothingness of being forgotten, and that's when you poked at us. You were like, "Hey, what's going on with Pullfrog?" But it was like public, right on Twitter.
Yes.
Yeah, and it was exactly in the catalog launch. So it was like, I guess 1 year ago, because they announced the catalog, and I think you were doing like a live event or something, or talking afterwards.
Yeah, so there was a situation.
And that's where you asked what happened with Pullfrog, because I think like it was assumed maybe that it was going to launch with the catalog or something.
So both
Like,
Andrew and
that
I,
was a possibility.
I think, had a similar idea of like just reaching out to people at different times, like what's happening with this. And so I think even if you go back and look at the very first Playdate update, somebody, Drew, and who works with me on Comet, he went back and watched it the other day, and he noted that only 2 games out of that first Playdate update that ever happened came out, and 2 of them he believed were still in development, right? So there's always different like sneak peeks of games that people have made, some that actually look very impressive, that just never went anywhere. And so kind of because I'm curious and because I want to encourage people that, hey, people care about what you're doing, there's, you know, what's happening. And so yeah, we were messaging people in relation to being a part of the Playdate Awards to get trailers last year, and there was this kind of tension of some people were like kind of just being kind of coy with us by saying, oh, we might be able to, you know, give you something, but also we might be doing something else. And you know, I think the catalog was coming out, and so, you know, read between the lines, that's what was going on. And so yes, some of that was playing out with a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Right.
And after that tweet, I think we talked about it, and we were like, oh yeah, what are we going to do with Pullfrog? Because we didn't know what to do. And then we replied like our version of the story, which was like, we submit the game and Panic was not interested in the game. And then Panic replied like, I think a couple of days later, and said like, oh, we missed your email or something, or like we lost the response that we were going to send to you.
Yeah, so
And
there
we were like,
was...
oh, okay.
There was... It'd be interesting to hear any other devs chime in, because I haven't heard any evidence to the contrary. But there was this form that was put out originally to say, hey, submit your game to us if you need publishing, or if you're a minority. We want to hear about people that are making games and want to be a part of something. So this was like a form that was put out. And as of today, I've never heard of anybody who ever got a response back from that form, and that form eventually got replaced. Now, I'm sure I don't have the full story here, but it sounds like you were one of those people that just didn't get a reply.
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
I was
I
too
mean,
scared to put anything into those forms.
yeah, and I guess we got a response just like 1 year later. I mean, which was fine. Like, it's not like, oh, bad panic for doing that. It was just,
Yeah, we weren't
I
even
guess,
salty or anything. It was just like, yeah, okay. Well, I guess they weren't interested. But like
Yeah.
the reply on Twitter kind of seemed like we were like, oh, Panic never replied to us, and so they like right away they were like, oh no, wait, we kind of like your game. Wait, let's talk. And I think it was like, I don't know, a couple of months later that Arisa reached out to us, and she asked like, well, we might not have funding for like what you guys were looking for, but we might have a little less funding if you would consider doing like just a straight up port of the original Pullfrog for Playdate. And we're like, oh yeah, that sounds amazing. That way we can finish it and not leave the game on hold forever. So
I think that's
that
pretty
was
generous.
Yeah, I mean, it was
Yeah,
great.
we were
it was
really
an awesome
happy.
Yeah, we never thought of it, so it was like, no, it has to be better. But when somebody told us, well, what if it isn't? Well, not that it's not better, but what if it wasn't such a big scope? We were like, oh, that's genius. We should do that.
It's always
What if
valuable
you
to
stop
have that.
thinking about boss battles and levels and just finish the game? And it's like, oh, yeah, that sounds like a good idea,
Yeah.
actually.
Well, I'd love to see some of that stuff a little later in the stream if you're willing.
Yeah, for sure. I got some like really weird concepts of that.
Yeah. Since this has been recorded, I just want to also kind of say, like, people often assume, or not just that Panic or the team that's working on Playdate is small, but as a platform holder, you look at the big three, and you kind of set up these expectations as for how you think somebody is going to respond or how active they're going to be. And so it's very easy to, I think, to fall into the trap of Panic as the platform holder for Playdate, and so they obviously have different responsibilities and all these things that they're trying to kind of hold together. I think it's very easy to understand that stuff is hard. They're a small team, so yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, we get that.
Well, maybe now is a good time to actually to show some of that behind the scenes stuff if you guys want to share.
Sure. Let me. I guess I'll open Photoshop and share my screen. We can show a bit like.
Yeah.
It's not fast. We usually like iterate quite quickly, straight to like the development. So
let us know when you're ready to show something, because I've just found out in the middle of this call that only one person can share their screen at once. So when you're ready, Aramis, you go ahead and stop streaming, and these guys can jump in.
Okay, sure. Let me open a bunch of files real quick and set up Photoshop, and I'll let you know in a minute.
I think that's perfect timing there.
Let's see the original concept, maybe. And let's see other stuff I can show.
Yeah, I could show my screen, but it's only code.
Well, maybe while there's a bit of dead air, let me ask a question. I know there are unlockable characters in Pullfrog. I was able to unlock the second one. Is it Sammy? Let me bring it up here. Got a title screen. Simon, yeah. What wasn't apparent to me when I started playing with Simon was how freaking difficult the game was. The game was already plenty tough on its own. But Aramis, I think you did a really good job showing some gameplay there. You don't have Simon unlocked yet. But Simon doesn't jump as high. And it took me a long time. I think I just wasn't paying attention. I was like, man, this is just like really harder to get around. Have you guys thought about presenting those stats to the player to understand the different characters?
A couple of people have said, a couple of people have approached us and asked us about like more information about the a place where they can see the stats of the characters. We thought about it. It was just like it's one more screen.
Yes.
And we already have like a lot of them. So we didn't know where to put it, to be honest. Like we also had it in one of those things where it was like it would be a nice to have, but it's not necessary for the game. So if we have time, maybe like we can do it. But for example, right now it's like let's just fix the bugs that that show up in at launch. So that's the main focus. But yeah, it's something that people have said. We also had ideas for like a meta game where you could like use the characters in a different way outside of the game, but that was like in the out of scope territory really quickly. So
Yeah.
we scratched that. Yeah.
I think
But yeah, like something like a wiki inside of the game with the types of characters and type of pieces has been asked for by a couple of people already.
I think, and there's probably some truth to this, but often when you think about games that have features that you were told about that ended up not coming through, like games can kind of have this infinite potential to just like, oh man, that could be amazing, or this could be great. And sometimes there's good reasons for these things don't come out or they don't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that I think
Sometimes
about it, I don't know if
people
Simon is. Yeah, I don't know if Simon is the best second character. Like we put it that way because that's how the Pico 8 version has it. Like first is Pullfrog, then it's Simon, and then it's Guns. So it kind of makes sense for us, but it's not like a progression of how easy the game becomes. Like it's not easier to play with Simon than with any. It's maybe harder than with Guns, for example. So
It also depends on your style of
maybe
play. 'Cause Simon has like a
Yeah.
really fast tongue, so he's great for destroying stuff, but he has a terrible jump, so it's kind of just like a different way of playing. And I think that's true of like every character. All the unlockable characters each have their own little quirk that makes them unique and kind of special. Except I think the last one, which is just maybe more OP than the basic frog. But yeah, I mean, it's we actually got like an email today asking us about very specifically about please tell me what the difference between the characters are, and I was like, well, it's kind of fun for the player to discover that. So I gave him like a little bit of an overview, but didn't get into really specifics of that. But I mean, it's telling that of people actually wanting to know what that is. So it might be something we'd like to add so everybody's happy.
Are you ready to share some stuff on your screen?
I am 100% ready.
Okay, Aramis. There we go. Nice.
All right. Let me share my screen. I'll share my entire screen. Why not? Okay, let me know if
We can see it.
you can see. Perfect. So this is the very first concept we try to make for the game. At this point, you can see like the game kind of trying to very directly port the Pico 8 version was maybe just as wide, but way taller because that's the way the Pico 8 version was. And we had a bunch of available space on the sides. So we decided to add maybe like a roguelike element, which is what the store is now when you open the store and you get one of the power-ups. But in this version, you would get the eyeballs, and then you would have to get up here by stacking pieces. I don't know if you can see my cursor.
I can, yeah.
That might. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So you would have to get up to this door and then pull it with your tongue if you have enough eyeballs, and then that would open up, and you would go inside this little tunnel. The game would pause, and you would talk to this merchant frog, and then use the eyes as currency to kind of get the upgrade you want. So like, yeah, that was kind of like the progression we wanted to do. One of the things we found out, actually Christian from Lazy Devs kind of pointed this to us, that the character wasn't really all that readable because of the small size of Playdate. So this frog is actually way smaller than the frog we have right now. I think the frog we're using right now is maybe almost twice as big.
No way, really?
For readability reason. Yeah. I mean, maybe not quite twice, but almost. We made it way bigger, and then the pieces we also made them. We were working on a 16 by 16 tile layout in this version, and we bumped it up to like 20 by 20, I think, the tiles.
Oh wow!
And yeah, we actually had to
I
reduce
didn't
the
notice.
Yeah. I mean, if you see this on a Playdate screen, like like the character looks like a white dot. It doesn't really, you don't really read the faces and the expressions in the animation. It's kind of difficult to read, especially with the white blocks that we were using at the time. But yeah, this is the very first concept we made for the game. And the way I work is basically I'll use this PSD and just work on it and like add layers and replace things, and it'll get really messy. I mean, I don't even know why I have this version of it, because like the actual version I used later is kind of more messy. Wait, I'm just spoiling stuff right now.
Oh wow,
Where's
that's
the original? I don't think I have it
there's all
open,
this
but
cool stuff we get to talk about.
yeah. Yeah, but that's like kind of the starting version. Eventually, we ended up. Oh, here's a very quick comparison of first attempt. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Well, just not only that, I mean, it kind of looks roughly about the same size, but the features are larger.
Yeah, this is the second iteration before we grew it.
Even more.
Wait, there's a new version of the frog. Let me. It should be right around. Let me check it out. Oh yeah, well here it is. Actually,
Okay.
I had it already open. So this is the new version you saw on the other slide, and this is the new version. So it's maybe not quite twice as big, but it's definitely more readable.
Yeah, certainly.
That's very interesting.
So this is right when Panic asked us to kind of work on the port version of the game. We were like, okay, we have to do something about readability. So, and basically in a week, I redid all the assets for the game because none of it was really usable because we were doing a 16 by 16 tile. So we had to update it to the 20 by 20. And thankfully we did that because now everything is way readable. And also we don't have as many blocks on screen at a time. So that might have helped us with performance as well.
Oh, so you're saying that the size changed after you started working on the game again, not before?
Yeah, not before. This is after we got the go ahead to work on the port.
Yeah, I remember there was a post that was made by Panic on Twitter of like one of the first early versions where it was outdoors, and that post was really inspiring because it was the first time it was somehow the most real looking like playing footage, which was I don't know, that's a weird way to put it. But I pulled it up and I'm comparing it. It's very interesting because I remember it definitely looks different now because I'm comparing it now. But let me see if I can drop this in here. There was another point I was going to make with this, but there's the link.
And
Yeah,
this, you're saying this was...
Wow, that's a really awesome embed. Thanks.
I have the original video that I can share.
Oh,
Yeah.
It was originally called 2 Bits. Clever.
Yeah, Pullfrog.
Yeah.
It was like a pun on like Pullfrog 2, and I mean it's not a 2-bit console actually, but yeah, it kind of made sense to us at the moment. We're like, of course, it's gonna be called Pullfrog 2 bits.
Okay, I put a snapshot of what you were talking about in the chat.
But yeah, this
Also,
was,
that
this
video
was
has
a-
really great lighting.
Yeah, I wanted to pull it up because it showed off the screen so well, and it was a really cool piece of footage. I had to shove it in somewhere in this conversation.
Cool. So, I guess, do you want to show us some of the other features? Because I guess one of my broad questions was going to be, at this stage, it's unclear to me what new additions the Playdate Deluxe version of Pullfrog has over top of the Pico 8 version. And obviously you had all these ideas. Could you tell me kind of what's new now and what new things? Show us some of those new things that you ended up dropping.
Oh yeah, for sure. One of the things was like I mean, I guess the power-ups were already there. We were going to do like a little in the shop. Let me see if this file has the little. Okay, yeah. So in the store, I don't think I have the merchant there, but this is a little trapdoor. Wait, let me. This was supposed to be a little trapdoor that would open up once you reach the merchant, and it would drop you off into a different level. And that's how you would like change difficulty. So you would come into a different board, and it would have like maybe these. We want to have little enemies that you would throw blocks at. So you see in the game there are the star blocks in the current game that you pull them and they'll like fly across the screen. We wanted to use that to kind of like maybe have enemies that you would hit and destroy with that.
That's
That
I
was
had
kind
a
of
specific question about the star blocks, because obviously I can use them to break other blocks, but they just feel like a bit of chaos that my brain was never able to really grok, and so that's interesting that that was an original idea for that.
Yeah, that's where those come from. We wanted to actually have the bosses that would come from the top of the screen, and you would have to, hit them, and that's what the star blocks were for. We ended up not doing that, but we like to keep the star blocks because I don't know, they feel good to kind of tear apart. But yeah, that was one of those things. Let me. We wanted to do this little cage scene where, in order to unlock a character, you would come down here and kind of pull this lever up here, and then the little cage would rise up, and then you would take control. Your current character would stay right here, and then the little new character would go out this door, and there would be an elevator. It would take you back to the game. It was just a different. I mean, this ended up becoming like the giant frog cutscene that we have in the game currently. It was just easier to do that than to program this at the moment because of deadlines into the game, and it was less of a hassle. There's one of the ideas we like that kind of got dropped.
Yes. I mean, this kind of reminds me, just on that point there. I haven't played. I played a little bit of the Pico 8 version, but not very much. But I got the sense that the story elements were new in the deluxe version.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not like very hard on story or lore about it. It's just to give it a little bit of flavor. Exactly, but yeah, I mean, kind of what we wanted to do with the bigger version was that give it a story, maybe like little Pac-Man like cutscenes between levels, so that you know why you're fighting things or why there are bosses or where's the frog going. That was kind of the idea. Did we ever, like, was this idea for Pullfrog where we wanted to do, like, once you finish the game and get to the top, there would be like a platforming game like above the, is that where that idea came from?
Oh yeah, we wanted to do like a secret kind of thing where you could go to the top and change the level, and maybe go to the top, get on top of the walls, and then walk to the right and fall down to a secret room or something. But yeah, it was really complicated. Like, now that you were explaining it, it's like we're never gonna do this. It's like just trying to do the whole flow of the things. It was really complicated in terms of game design. It was like, how are we gonna pull people out from the game, put them here, and then somehow return them to the game and make it feel okay?
I can't think of any puzzle games.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably not true. I'm trying to think of other puzzle games that layer in an element of pulling you in and out. But I guess Pick Pack Pup, yeah, that does. Puzzle Quest, yeah, okay, I'm seeing it.
There's a game called Henry Hatsworth for DS that kind of does that.
I know
the
that
top
one.
screen is a running fighting kind of platforming game, and the bottom screen is Tetris Attack.
Yes,
it's one of my favorite things ever.
Well, very cool.
With all these features that you had to, take out to simplify it in order to release, were there any main ones that you really wished could have been in for the final release?
I don't know if I would like, but I really like the structure that we had with the old store. I think we spent a lot of time on that, and when we had to cut it, it was a little bit of a shame. I think it's worth it at the end, but like the whole flow, it was that you will collect the eyes, and then you would have to throw your tongue to the door, and then you would open it, and if there was a lock on it, it will like shake to tell you that you didn't have enough eyes to open the door. And then we have this whole like little cutscene where you would talk to the merchant, and if you did something, I don't know what happened, but there was a trapdoor, and that's why the frog is like.
Oh yeah, I realize actually a lot of what you're talking about now is on the blog, on your most recent devlog.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So all of that, it's a little bit documented there, and we even had like good sound. Like I can hear it in my head, like all the sound effects that we had for that.
Yeah, it was polished. It was basically done. Yeah, that was a one that we didn't love cutting it, but I think in the end it was like the better choice.
Yeah,
And basically
I don't
bosses, like
regret telling it.
we didn't develop a lot of the things we wanted to do because we were kind of waiting for to see if we got funding. But maybe the finding a way to implement bosses into like even the current game would have been a fun one to do. Actually, speaking of bosses, let me like I have these weird drawings of things that could have been bosses. Um, some might be slightly not safe for work, so I apologize.
Maybe
if
some
that's
intellectual
just where
property
I operate.
theft.
Yeah, a little bit of that too. Um, but yeah, I mean, this was just like concept exploration of kind of what these bosses could have been. I really like
Or
this
like
rat.
enemies in general that would. Yeah, that was good.
I really enjoy these. These are all really cool.
Thanks.
I
It's
see.
solid.
What's it? The pyramid
Hill
with the
cycle?
eye. What's that from?
Gravity Falls
Was that Gravity
from
Falls? I thought it
the
was something
US dollar bill.
nuclear. The Lambert game, Nuclear Throne.
Nuclear Throne.
I
Yeah.
feel like there's a triangle that is like. It's totally a character from that. But anyway, continue.
No, yeah, I mean these are just like the little explorations of bosses we could have done. Like this is like a version of the merchant we had, and the previous version, and
Yeah.
maybe yeah, we were talking about maybe finding a way to steal things, from the merchant so that he would become a boss later on in a different run. And yeah, I mean a lot of this would have been quite fun to do. This little.
But
I
it's
had
more,
a-
yeah, we haven't been able to do a boss in a game yet, so still one of those things that we want to do eventually.
I didn't want to interrupt. I had a question as well. So these are the boss concepts. Is there any concept for an unlockable character that didn't make the final cut?
I don't think so. I think I
I
just
don't
straight up
think so,
started
yeah.
working on them. Like here, like I can show you my files for like the animation on these. Let me
All of
see.
this is going to be really spoiler heavy, probably. If somebody.
Oh yeah, sorry if somebody if somebody doesn't want to see some of these characters,
Yeah.
look away. Well, maybe
But I
not
think
now,
for the
but-
fullness of time, this conversation is probably supersedes the importance of avoiding spoilers.
Sure. Yeah, like the way I did the characters. First, we did the frog, and I did all these animation frames in Photoshop.
Did you enjoy working in 1-bit?
Yeah, definitely. It's so simple. You don't have to think. It kind of like it's another restriction that just lets you concentrate on. Okay, I have two colors, and I'm just gonna make it, read with the shapes that I do. It's really fun. I enjoyed it, but I am a little bit of a cheater. So like for the characters, I mean I did have to do the animation very directly. No real shortcuts. But for stuff like this,
Dun, dun, dun.
for the frog god, I have this shortcut using adjustment layers and a dither pattern, where I actually just paint everything in grayscale in Photoshop, and then I turn on this, and it will basically give me all the dithering, and you can just change the dither pattern, and it'll help you. I mean, yeah, if you add anything, or maybe change the grayscale color in the bottom,
Yeah.
it will give you the
Oh, that's very
automatic
cool.
dither pattern.
I mean,
That's a really
So-
cool way of doing that.
That's makes it so much easier. I can just grayscale paint stuff and animate things, and I don't have to worry about the dithering. I mean, it's not like a really aesthetic or stylistic dithering like the one Lucas Pope does in his game, but it made me do like this cutscene in like an afternoon.
yes.
That's awesome. I can relate to like being able to work with just black and white is very freeing, because you can only do so much with it, so it's really nice to be able to have that creative freedom to in a way. It is freeing because you don't have to think about it about certain things nearly as much, and the kind of art that we get with those limitations are awesome, because I love this cutscene. It's so cool.
Thanks so much. Yeah, it was a treat to make, and yeah, I mean it's pretty straightforward. Like one of the things I kind of do wish, I mean, it's I kind of wish I had another color, just like a slight gray, because when trying to look for references, I don't know, like a Game Boy game, Game Boy has 4 colors, right? So you can get away with like better shapes or like using less pixels to draw something, and in this one you kind of like either dither or and sometimes you don't have like the real estate to get something to read, so it's a little bit tricky, but it has its own beauty, and yeah, it's really fun to do.
Yeah, in Diora, I can relate to that because in Diora, when I'm working in 3D, I'll model something with not that much detail, and then once it's dithered, all the detail goes away, and working around
Mhm.
that can be tough, and I can totally
Yeah.
agree with that. It's interesting to have to work around that part for sure.
Yeah, but it gives it like a unique aesthetic, and like I'm amazed by Diora. Like I don't even know what's happening, but it looks so beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I'm sure we'll go into some depth with that at some point. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Maybe once it's out in a year and in 10 years
Well, but it'll be out someday.
someday.
Maybe
I
this is related to some pre-release or early development work, but it's no secret that I love Level Design Toolkit, because in Comet, so much of what I'm doing is working in the level editor to design puzzles and design levels and that sort of stuff. And so, just like I do things like this to help build the community, I try to spread the good news about LDTK to get more devs into it, because things will only get better for LDTK on the Playdate and elsewhere if people are getting into it and using it. And so early on, I was like, oh man, it's cool, these guys are using LDTK. But now when I look at the game, and obviously when I look at what you've got on your screen right now, I don't understand why would you choose to use this at all, because being a non-developer myself, Drew on the Comet team, he has to work around what he kind of has described recently as the heaviness of LDTK, right? The tax and the overhead of loading levels and transitioning and all these different things. I guess there's some stuff going on there. And so, do you want to talk about why you decided to use LDTK for my own personal interest?
Yes, of course. We love it, but Mario can take it away.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, when we worked on Pullfrog for Pico 8, Pico 8 comes with a level editor included, and it was really easy for us to test the game using the level editor. I don't know if you can put some pieces on the wall to show what I mean. But
is this prototyping in terms of like just the feel of things, or because presumably
a little bit, but more so like bug fixing, for example. So it would happen a lot that a really specific layout of the level would cause a problem in the game, and then replicating it was it's really easy once you have like this level.
Okay.
And we could position
wow.
the frog in a certain point and like set the layout in a certain way, and then just run the game over and over with that layout and see if the problem is fixed.
Yeah, this made debugging so much simpler. Like it made it something that wasn't horrible.
Yeah. Okay. So you can place these down for debugging and that sort of stuff, but I'm playing the game as anybody else plays the game when they first kind of load it up, and you realize, oh crap, I can't pull a block into the corner, or not very easily at least, and so you're just kind of waiting on the algorithm of the game to say, okay, there's a gap here, I'm going to put a block in the corner for you. And so there is presumably some sort of algorithm behind the scenes that's deciding which blocks are going to be placed when. You're not determining that stuff within LDTK, right?
Oh, definitely not.
Oh no.
Yeah.
We can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a secret that I don't know if it's gonna ruin this a little bit. I don't think so. It's gonna help people, but there's a chance. Like I think it's a 2% chance of a piece is gonna spawn right on top of you. So if you want a piece to spawn like in the corner, then you play in the
Go stand in
corner.
the
You know,
corner.
yeah, you
Yeah.
stand in the corner, and then eventually one is gonna be there. Also, we use the bucket system similar to how Tetris does it. That we have like these positions, and then we make sure that we spawn the pieces on the positions, like each one of the positions. And once we run out of positions, then we start again. We shuffle it and we start again. But in that situation, like 0.2% is gonna spawn on top of you. So that's the algorithm. So, and I think even we have more positions in the corners. So yeah, it's like
I'll set that.
twice in the corners, and then yeah, so it's gonna spawn more in the corners. But just people, the moment they start playing, they see like, and it's like, oh, this is gonna be hard, and then they just assume all the time that that it's gonna is a feeling thing that it's being really hard to battle against. But yeah, we have tried to make it less annoying to try to put pieces in the corners.
Yeah.
That's
Like
a
doing that.
really smart way of trying to not having the game be a little bit nicer on the player. Like that's really good. That's smart.
No, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
We kind of wanted to like the idea of having the pieces spawn on the player was mainly me wanting to not have people hide from the pieces. So if you stand still, they're gonna crush you eventually. Like there's a high chance that pieces will spawn out. But eventually it became a thing where like it gave you a little bit of control. So I realized maybe it's just me, but the way I played it is when I wanted a piece to fall where I was, I would go stand there and wait for the piece. So it really worked out that the pieces are falling on top of where you're falling like once every 1 out of 10 or 2 out of 10. And yeah, it makes it feel kind of like you're not frustrated that the pieces aren't really appearing where you're wanting them to be. So yeah, it's a very simple algorithm, but it works really well, we think.
Yeah, on the topic
once you
of,
know about it, it changes how you play. Yeah.
on the topic of helping out the player, I think it's been really nice seeing a lot of work put into making features like where you jump and you're slightly hitting a block, it'll push you out, or when you slightly get crushed, it pushes you away. I know that probably wasn't the easiest thing ever, but it is a huge help with the game where it doesn't feel completely unfair where you're like one pixel got squished and you lose, but instead it kind of gives the player some help where they feel like they shouldn't lose.
Yeah, that was
I think
super
that's the
important.
biggest change from the Pico 8 version. Because like once you play Pullfrog for the Playdate and then you go back to the Pico 8 version, you might realize how unforgiving the Pico 8 version is. It does have a little bit of corner correction, but first, mostly like pulling the pieces doesn't take into account anything. Like they just like if you're one block away from the piece, you can pull it, but if you're closer than one block, then the piece just doesn't respond to your tongue. It just feels bad. Like now that I play the Pico 8 version, it's one of those things that makes me cringe. Like, oh no, feels so
It
bad.
feels so bad. Yeah. But that was also
Yeah.
like due to like the limitations. Like we could do basically no more with the game with our current knowledge and like with how full it was, because we pushed the card to the limit on the Pico 8 version as well.
We've got about 30 minutes left before I reckon we need to get out of here. So with that in mind, I might open the floor up to anybody who wants to ask questions. So if you want to, I'll invite you, put your hand up using the systems within Discord, and I'll let you jump in. And so I see Panini has requested to speak. So Panini, do you have a question?
I was actually just gonna comment. I never played the PK08 version, and I've been using the corner correction quite extensively. Like less than not feeling fair, I put pieces in corners in the edges regularly. I pop myself to the other side to get to the other side faster. It's been I really like it a lot.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you.
I mean,
Sorry, it's not a question. I'm just saying like how since I did.
Not a question, more of a comment, but it is good. Thank you.
yeah, no, it's good. Like it
I
was
really
really good
enjoyed, I would say.
for people to like enjoy the
You
game.
could
and
tell.
not get
I do want to know about the deep, question. You could tell us about the debug stuff.
Oh, one thing that I wanted to say is that we're using the PD options library, but only on development. I remember I saw a message somewhere that
Interesting.
was saying
Yeah.
about that. I just wanted to confirm that somehow.
Oh.
Yeah, I see that. Because it's
Can you
not
press
imported
quickly the developer options, JP?
What was that?
Like the menu. Escape or?
No. Wait, I have to
Oh,
turn them
you
on.
don't have the dev mode on.
I have to turn
Yes.
this into true. Okay, there we go.
Dev options. Nice. Oh, that's really
Let
cool.
me turn up the.
Where it is?
Uh,
There we go.
It's a very
It's really
fancy
cool.
dev menu.
well, I'm sure
Yeah,
you
I'm
guys.
sure it's all about good UI. Sorry, you were saying?
I was going to say, you know what PD options is, right, Zach? Zach?
Oh, it's a library.
Yes, this is Gingerbread Man,
Yeah.
Matt, and Mac. They built this for Sparrow Solitaire, and then they just put it out for the community to use. And so it's just something that anyone can use.
Wow, that's really nice.
Yeah, it's really good.
I'll have to.
It's not really good for performance though, but
Oh, really?
it's nice for this.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you can improve it for your needs, but yeah.
Oh man, I had never considered.
Yeah, it's some
pulling
pro
up all the
strats right
blocks
there.
To keep them from going
Yeah,
down.
that's that's a pro move right there. It's not really that useful. Before you could go like over the edge of the screen and fall infinitely. So yeah, we kind of put a limit on the top so you can do that. But yeah,
That seems ripe for
So-
a, warp pipes or something like that.
Secret level.
I'm gonna, in the absence of other people in the community jumping in to ask questions, I'm gonna ask one that was asked a little earlier by Lumi. Lumi is the developer of What the Crow and Midnight Riders. So he asked, or they asked, what was the most challenging aspect or hurdle to get the game development really going for your team?
the most challenging aspect or hurdle to get the game
I
going.
think for Pullfrog at least it was the physics, the movement, and we spent like a year completely like doing that, like the corner correction, like making sure that it worked correctly.
I can see that in LDTK in the
that it was
background there.
performant.
That at one point you had
Yeah.
character aspects within the character control or character entity in LDTK, but I guess it's all in code now. It's no longer in LDTK.
Yeah, all of those variables still exist, but now they are loaded because now we have different characters. So I think you can still do them in LDTK, but I don't know if it actually works. We also do the UI in LDTK. That's one of the other things that we do.
If you can see these faint little
that's-
colored
I can see
squares,
those,
gives
yeah.
us all the placement of the UI.
If you change the
elements.
layer, yeah.
Wait, let me.
Yeah, and I think if you
One
hit
of
Shift
those.
A or Control A, it'll let you just show that layer. And there you go. Wow, look at that.
Yeah, that's how we.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like the hardest thing was definitely getting the physics where we wanted them to, and then debugging, like trying to figure out things. We would implement like a little fix that made things feel better, and then it would break everything elsewhere. Every time we wanted to add something, it was like, should we do this? And our thing we would always say is like, that's going to be a can of worms. But then we would open the can of worms and try to fix everything. And I mean,
And
we're still kind of
spend
dealing with
weeks.
that today, especially these last 3 days when the public, because we had some QA from Panic, right? And they did like a good job testing things out. But you can't. I mean, it wasn't like a team of 20 people doing QA. It was like a single person. So
Man,
there's
that's
things that are just bound to be not discovered.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about how that's been, because it sounds I know that kind of thing can be stressful. I wanted to know, like, has it been particularly stressful, or has it just been a lot of hard work? Or
specifically the hot fixes and the post-release support. You mean?
Right? Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean,
Definitely
it's like-
stressful, but not too bad.
yeah, it's knowing that people are like like being like, hey, the game crashed here, and then you getting that same report from different people. It's like, yeah, we know, we're working on it, we're sorry. It feels bad that people want to play the game and enjoy it, and then you see a game breaking bug and you're like, fuck.
Was it just I don't remember exactly what they were, but were they just edge cases that weren't considered, or were they just kind of a unique situation that you weren't expecting?
There's like two categories. The one is like the edge cases that we haven't been able to replicate, like in terms of the gameplay, that somebody pulled the
Right.
piece in some way, and then it got stuck, and yeah, things like that. And there's the other category, which is like something weird happened with the device, which is not loading files, and then everything is crashing because of that. Which doesn't happen in like it should be really easy to replicate with like it's just opening the game should crash it, and it's not happening in our side, so it's hard to debug without
It's just happening to one person, so that's also
Totally,
like,
yeah.
well,
Or two,
what's your
yeah.
situation? Like, why is this happening to you and not anyone else?
Hmm.
I mean, hopefully it's just the one person, but yeah, it's kind of like hard to figure out that stuff out. Like, there's this bug that's been reported constantly today and yesterday, where the line gets frozen. There's a white line, and it gets, when you clear a line, the white
I've seen
kind of
this.
image gets frozen, and then the game breaks, and then pieces stop spawning. I've been trying to replicate that for 2 days, and I just can't get it to happen in my device and in the
Simulator.
simulator. Yeah. And
Oh,
so
I was going
yeah,
to tell you, maybe it has something to do with this shop, because the thing that we fixed today, maybe somebody
Maybe.
died. Yeah, I don't know. But there's like a million variables. We don't know. But we have been making things to at least get more information out of crashes. So putting more logs and things like that. Yeah.
So if anyone plays this and gets weird bugs, please, like, we'd really appreciate like pressing B to kind of get the log of that and share it with us. That'll be really helpful to help fix the crashes or like the weird
Defrost the other one. It's in the freezer.
unfindable
The
bugs.
dog food.
There's a log system
Oh,
for
just
reporting
figure something out,
bugs?
babe. Sorry, I'm live streaming right now.
Did I understand that
There's
correctly?
Yeah, I added like a log system that should give us more information, but still really manual. Like it's a file inside of the folder of the data of the game. So
That's really cool. That's a really great idea.
yeah, another thing that we want to do is like a cheat system to help people like get back the characters that they unlocked. But that's gonna take a little bit more time.
Hey Pablo, do you want to jump in and ask your question?
Yeah, hello everyone. Congrats to
Hello.
Mario and JP for the game. It's really cool.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanna, I kinda zoned out a bit in the part where you were telling the story, and I don't know if you could do me the favor of kind of like, not explaining it again, but just like a brief summary of the hurdles that, like kind of like the timeline, like the big timeline of what happened in the game.
Well, like from the beginning.
Yeah, like I know you were saying that there were some parts where kind of like the developers weren't. No, not the developers, but kind of like when you were selling like the game, like there was a part where you fell out of contact with them, and I don't know.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I got
Yeah.
a little bit lost, but
No, yeah. So Panic at one point asked, they made this form so that we could fill them in and asked maybe for they were maybe going to give funding to projects and like kickstart the projects that were being developed for Playdate. So we filled out one of those forms in hopes to get some funding. We were looking for like 6 months of funding to finish the game and do everything we wanted to do. And so we filled out the form. We waited for Panic to respond, and they didn't respond. So we moved on, and while we waited, we went on to make another game. And a little bit, maybe I think about a year later, Donald asked us about the game where it was at the moment, and it was on Twitter, so it was kind of public. And we said, well, we never heard back from Panic, and Panic saw it, and they were like, oh, we must have got the game, or the email must have gotten lost, or we didn't see it, or whatever. But we're interested in your game. So that's when they reached back out to us, and they made us an offer to fund a smaller version of the game. which is this version. It was basically a port of the original PK8 Bullfrog. And yeah, that's kind of like the quick version of the timeline on how the game got published by Panic.
Oh, okay, yeah. Now I got it. Now I got it. Cool. That's really cool. Congrats.
Yeah,
Thanks, Pablo.
thanks so much.
Yeah.
What else?
I
so
was.
with all these,
Go ahead.
oh,
Sorry,
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna ask if there were any bugs that you guys had in development that were particularly funny or were chaotic in some way. Because these are the kinds of things that I think about when I'm developing.
Sure.
I don't know if we had
I mean, they all
any
seem
funny
so,
ones.
so frustrating in hindsight.
Yeah, I get that. I get that.
I don't remember any funny
I think
ones
we
from this.
found like no, me neither. Well, I remember one that we put in the devlog that was like the frog was shaking. I don't know why it happened, but yeah, the frog got stuck in the air and then started shaking, and the mouth would open a lot, and it looked weird. But that's on the devlog as well. But that's
Yeah.
the only one that I think about.
I have a bunch of debug gifs in this folder, so I don't know. I can scroll through them while we talk, and maybe I'll find some like weird, funny glitch. Oh, look, this is like
Oh, this
Early.
this little dotted line effect. I notice you have it in your salmon game as well. It's it's quite seems like it's a thing, a little stylistic thing you guys like to do.
it's mostly for it's debugging. It's kind of like seeing the trails, and
Yeah.
it helps really figure out where to if something stops in a weird way or something behaves in a weird way. It really helps you see kind of like the curve. If there's this weird inconsistencies with it, it means something's not working quite as right. So it's really helpful, and also it looks nice.
Yeah, we're also using it in the pinball game.
Well,
Oh,
okay.
this shaking! Oh, this shaking gif! I love that. That's hilarious.
Let's talk about the pinball game. So, I I look at your blog and I look at let me get the right name, Don Salmon, right? This game looks great, right? Like the fluidity of the movement and the art. It's like it's a beautiful looking game. And so I kind of assumed that once you guys finished Pullfrog, you guys might return to that, and then even before release or just around release, all of a sudden I see Mario posting like, "Oh, here's me working on a pinball prototype." So what's the story there?
So
We have a disease, a pinball disease.
we were talking about what like we really wanted to get back into Don Salmon, and we were kind of finishing up Bullfrog, and one of the games we wanted to kind of do for a play date, we wanted to do like a Pokemon, like a just a straight up. I mean, not.
You're not alone in that idea.
Pokemon. Yeah, but we wanted to do like what would Pokemon be for?
Oh,
play
you
date?
should
Straight
show
up,
the concept art. The concept art is great.
Let me. I'll look for it. But it wasn't realistic. It wasn't really realistic. So I told Mario like we should maybe make like if we want to keep make another Playdate game, we should make that game before we move on to Godot again, because I think if we drop off the Playdate, we might not be coming back to it ever. And I really want to make another Playdate game. So Mario was like, well, I've always wanted to make a pinball, and I want to learn C, so it shouldn't be that hard. And Mario, you can keep going while I look for the.
Yes. So yeah, we had a couple of ideas too, but mainly is what JP is saying. Like we want to make another game for the Playdate before jumping back into Don Salmon, because that feels like a bigger project, and we don't know how long it's gonna take us, and we don't know if like it's gonna be a year until we can make another Playdate game. So we had like this Infinite Runner idea.
Oh yeah.
JP may show, may not. But yeah, we had an idea of like an Infinite Runner similar to Cannibal, or maybe a Pokemon game with like different things. But then like none of them really excited us that much. They were like, we could do them, but it's not really.
This was the
We
runner
didn't
thing.
appeal that that much. Yeah. And then yeah, I was playing Devil's Tilt, is it? I think.
Demon's Tilt.
And Demon's Tilt, and I told JP like, oh, I would really like to make a pinball. And then JP was like, oh, I love pinball games for the Game Boy. And then since we have been like consuming everything pinball related, which has been like we knew about pinball from video games, but there's not a lot of tables in Mexico, so it's been weird to try to consume as much as possible about pinball without like having table nearby to play it. So we played a lot of like video games of pinball, and we're trying to do a lot of research into what things we like about like the design of pinball in general. And as JP said, like I want to learn C in general. Like that's one of the goals that I have for like for the next couple of months. And I have been like doing a lot of research and like doing tutorials and things. And
Let's
at
see
some
what
point I
you
was
got
like,
here, JP. I want to see this.
This is the concepts for the little Pokemon idea
Wow.
I wanted to make. It would be like kind of fishing instead of Pokeballs, and you would find like little shadows in the ground, and kind of that's how you'd find the monsters. And then the combat would maybe be based on energy. It's kind of like a Slay the Spire.
I
style
recognize
kind of
that
thing.
Space World Pokemon.
Exactly. Yeah. This is kind of like the inspiration to kind of get the juices flowing. Obviously, wouldn't use that, but yeah, this was just the concept thing. And I did some concepts for the town, I think. But yeah, in the end, like this wasn't didn't feel like a doable short game idea. But it was fun to explore this.
Well, if you wanted to make
Yeah.
that Pokemon game and you swapped a pinball, you should remake Pokemon Pinball, which is a great Game Boy game.
Yeah, which is actually one of the biggest like inspirations. I was
Yeah.
telling Mario because I always say that the Binding of Isaac is one of the games I played the most. But then coming back to the pinball thing, I realized that Pokemon Pinball is one of the games. It's actually the game I played the most in my life, I think. So yeah, I have a really sweet spot in my heart for it.
Yeah. So yeah, we say to each other like if we manage to make something in a month, like a demo or something, then we'll try to do it. And like the idea is to not take too long to make the pinball game. But I mean, obviously, since we didn't count with Pullfrog launching, and then we have to go back to work on Pullfrog for a little bit and to fix everything, and then we can go back to the pinball. But yeah, that's the idea.
I
Like
was
a
gonna
quick
say, though,
project that
I've-
we can finish in a month. Yeah.
I've heard this same 1 month story before.
It's not gonna be a month, but it's always nice to be hopeful.
That
Yeah.
animation.
I mean, we
of
know
the-
that it's not going to take.
Sorry, go ahead.
Tell.
Yeah,
There's that animation of the guy with the legs. Is that 3D? It looks kind
that
of
is 3D. Yeah, it's definitely like I have a little Blender scene set up. Let me see. Is it this one? Maybe. Let me see if Blender opens up. So one of the things we were wanting to do is do everything or most of the stuff in Blender. So I have this little layout and renderer that is looking kind of janky because I was doing experiments on this, but basically it'll render out with the dithering black and white.
You're doing screen space shaders for the dithering. That's really cool. This is giving me kind of like I was considering like how back when Dior was started, I was trying to figure out how I wanted to handle the dithering and stuff, and that was something I was thinking about, but I didn't think it would work. But the effect that it has on in that little GIF was really good. That's really fancy. I like it.
Yeah, it's super fun, and the setup was really easy, and it lets me do things like these little ball animations. I don't know if they'll like read really well because of the size of the screen.
Oh yeah, I see that.
It really helped like.
I mean, yeah, that works. That works.
And I actually wonder like how you're not doing. I thought you were doing kind of like the dithering everything. Yeah, like screen space for Dio.
Yeah, it's done. For Dior, it's rendered grayscale, and then I use an external tool to dither the image table. So
Okay, cool,
yeah,
cool.
there's a page on the Diora website that I use to make the blocks. So theoretically, when people will be able to make their own blocks when for custom levels and stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm definitely gonna check that out.
Yeah.
And also, when I make this like available for people, like even my little shader thing for Photoshop and like this for Blender, like if people could use that or want to use that for their game, I'd be more than happy to share it. And like,
Having the nodes for that dithering shader in Blender would be a really cool thing to have for people who want to do pre-rendered sprites in 3D for Playdate games. I think that's a really powerful tool.
yeah, and I'll definitely like post it somewhere and like share it with whoever wants it. I'm actually doing two things. I'm doing like the screen space dithering for the render, and I'm doing compositing afterwards to kind of get the pixel art stroke, which is very specific to like kind of the look I want to go for in the pinball thing. But it's looking pretty good, and it makes it super easy to just iterate and make quick animations.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's awesome.
Look at this little boy.
Yeah,
So when it comes to
being able to
Pullfrog-
render that instantly is really awesome. Sorry, go ahead.
You're good. When it comes to Pullfrog, I'm sure you guys have played that game a lot since you're the developers.
Yes.
How good are your high scores?
Actual
Is
high
anyone coming
scores?
close to them? Yeah.
Sure. I mean, the game actually gets to a point where it's really hard to go on from that. So I think my actual high score is around 80-ish, 90 something while testing. I haven't really wanted to go for a high score in the release build because it's always kind of weird when like the high score is the developer, and I kind of don't want that. I mean, I'm not trying to be like cocky or anything, but yeah, I don't know. But I mean, I could probably easily reach the top 3 at the moment. I mean, I'm sure eventually like somebody will do an unbeatable thing, and I'll be like, oh, how do they do this? But yeah, for now it's a little reachable, at least I think so.
Gotcha. And with that, do you guys?
For me,
have
I
favorite
always get
characters?
really distracted. Oh.
Lag. Sorry.
My lag, sorry. But I always
Okay.
get distracted when trying to play. Like, I get to a certain point where I'm in the zone, and suddenly I see something that is like, oh, I need to fix that, and then I lose. So that happens to me a lot. In terms of what's my favorite character, I think it is Tom Kid, because it was really easy to implement, and I think it feels really different to all the other characters. So yeah, that's mine.
I think mine is the frog. It just feels good. The game is perfectly balanced for the frog, and I really enjoy it.
How have you guys? I guess how were you guys feeling leading up to the release? Was that was your release date set by Panic, or was that something? Presumably, you guys obviously negotiated that, but did you feel that you had enough time to get the game to a place where you were happy with it going out?
Yeah, definitely. Like we talked with Panic about it. They asked us like when we wanted to release, if we were in a rush. Actually, they kind of wanted. Well, we talked about releasing it last year in around November. But I think the QA people were gonna stop working on Panic games, or we're gonna stop testing the Playdate games end of November all the way through December. So we were like, oh, we have no rush to release it really, so we can just push it towards next year. And then once this year came, we talked about releasing it separately from but they were like, oh, we think it would be cool to kind of like do a joint release, and we thought that would be like a better idea because it gets more traction and more people to kind of like look at the store and maybe download both games or whatever. So yeah, we kind of there wasn't really no rush. The game was basically finished in December.
Okay, and you guys have felt good with the state of the build.
Yeah. There was nothing more we could really exhaustively test. I mean, famous last words, and then here we are now doing hot fixes. But we like a lot of the stuff is stuff we didn't find and the testers never found. So we were kind of expecting that once release came, we would be working on things that we didn't catch during the test. But yeah, there was like a lot of testing, at least on my part. Like I do a lot of while Mario's fixing bugs and stuff, I'm just trying to replicate it or trying to get things to break, and I'm pretty good at getting things to break. So I mean, all in all, even with like the weird things that are happening with the game and like the weird glitches and bugs, I think it was pretty solid.
And so you were feeling good before release, and after release with the reception. I don't know. How have you felt that's been?
I'm quite happy. Like I'm really stoked. We were kind of nervous. We were thinking like, well, like we were up in our minds like, oh, people are probably gonna hate it, and like is there, and it's so great, and we love it, and people are gonna be like, oh, why would I buy Pullfrog if there's other games, and it's gonna be total crap. But no, the reception has been great, and some people have not. Some people don't really love it, and some have been like, oh, maybe it's not a game for me. But most of the people who have played it are saying they like it a lot, so that feels really good, and it makes us feel like it was worth it. We're very happy about it, and maybe a little stressed working out the bugs and seeing that it breaks for some people, but overall we're pretty happy with it.
That's great. I think
I'll say for me.
Oh, go on.
Yes.
I'll say for me personally, I'm someone who I don't like Tetris, and I'm not really a high score game player. And this is, I think, my favorite game on the Playdate.
Oh,
which is
wow.
impressive of how good the game just is.
Oh, thank you so much. That feels nice, and it's weird. It's weird for me to hear that, because like you're also stuck in a game for so long, and you're like you see it with you see what's broken when you're developing a game, right? So when people say like, oh, it's so great, it's like you get a little bit of imposter syndrome. But yeah, I really appreciate like you liking it and people really enjoying it. So thank you so much.
Somebody just this week reached out and said they were excited for the release of Comet. And I said to them that I just assume people are lying to some extent when they tell me they like my game, right? Because I don't know, exactly, I see everything, and they see this infinite potential for what it's going to be, but it is not yet. What's that? It's a launch sequence. I thought that was a submarine in the top left-hand corner there.
A submarine?
It's a launch sequence. PSD. It just looked like a submarine for a moment. But anyway, yes, I think it is. I can't wait until the game is live and people can play it. That's a long ways off though.
Yeah, but like
I'm really excited about Comet as well.
Looking forward to it. Yeah, it's one of those games. Like we want to play it.
It's gonna be good.
It's gonna be great.
I don't think it was really clear to me before this call that and Pullfrog coming out this week. Those are both Panic published games, right? For so long, we had the first kind of wave of catalog releases that I think were all games that had very close connection to things Panic were doing. I'm not sure which ones Panic paid for or not. And since then, it's felt as though, again, my assumptions, that it's just been community games that have been coming out. And so I appreciate you guys talking a little bit about your relationship with Panic and working all that sort of stuff out. It's been really interesting to hear it.
Yeah, no, like I think the great thing about community is like sharing all that stuff and working together to kind of get the games out there and have more people play them and support each other. Like the little dev channel with like catalog things where talking about talking about wish lists and how games are performing is really useful, especially for people like new to the catalog who would never publish anything, to kind of know what to expect and stuff like that. So I think, what you're doing in the community, I think it's super great.
I think one of the things that we struggled the most when we started doing Pullfrog was actually the lack of community, because we came from the Pico 8 community, which is massive. Like you can always see how somebody else did something, and you can like go in and Discord and talk to people. So when this Discord started to become alive, it was like the biggest change I think for me, because it was like finally we can see like what
Yeah.
other people are working on and like
And like in the year
understanding
we were off,
the
like the
platform.
community grew a lot too.
Yeah.
I think Andrew has
Yeah.
a lot to thank
And
for
there
that
was
as
like
well.
this
Gant,
old
Tiny Yellow Machine. He's been putting
Yeah.
lots of work into I think to expand, bring people in outside of maybe the hardcore, the people that are already going to be interested.
Yeah, yeah. As people got their playdates, as they now that they're finally caught up, the community grew a lot from that, which was good. So now there's
Yeah.
there's actual. How many is it now? 50,000? I don't remember.
I think
70K was what was just announced. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Probably less active ones, but yeah, I
Hmm.
mean, still a pretty solid number.
Yeah, I'm sure. But yeah, having that finally catch up is 70,000 potential members now and there are people who don't have one yet that I know are engaged. So that's cool.
Yeah. Also going to be like, obviously with the Punishing publishing, we have like a period of exclusivity, but eventually like getting the game to release on itch.io or somewhere else is also, I think, going to be a good thing for other people who might not have a play date but have a way to play it, who can buy it and give it a try.
I think so. Yeah. So, you guys are doing some bug fixes. Do you guys have any other post-release plans for Pullfrog, or kind of full steam ahead on the pinball game?
I mean, I'm super excited about the pinball game, but like we don't want to leave Pullfrog hanging. We don't want to leave anyone like dissatisfied having bought it and like having it crash or anything. So we're gonna do our best to like correct all these things. But we don't have any plans for any like new characters or new features or anything at the moment. We want to kind of concentrate on pinball, and maybe once that's out, we could maybe see about adding stuff to Pullfrog. If there's demand for it, or if we figure something out that could work for the game, we might come back to it.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Final call for anybody that wants to ask a question. Otherwise, I think this is a pretty natural stopping point.
Look at that glitch. I don't even remember that.
Okay.
But I love it.
Well, I'll say I really appreciate you guys reaching out to just do something. We didn't even really declare what we're going to be doing at the beginning, or when you reached out. And so it's kind of cool to have the first one of these. So thank you.
No, thank you for having us.
Yeah,
It was
thanks, you.
really lovely, and yeah, it was great. And we're going to be hanging out in these more often.
Yeah. For anyone.
Yeah, and if anyone has any questions, we're going to be around. So.
And they should reach out to you in the channel on the Discord server or on Twitter, presumably.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, sure.
Discord, Twitter, website, just anywhere where you see us. You see us
Mastodon,
walking down the street, you can
email.
be like, "Hey guys, talk to me about games."
Awesome. Well, thank you again. Thank you, Simply. Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Aramis, for all jumping in here and helping with this. Hopefully it was not too stressful. For anybody in the community watching this now or in the future, again, if you're a developer, please reach out to me or any of the mods, or probably anybody in this call, if you want to do a showcase or a community showcase in the future. I think there's an idea to maybe shoulder tap some people in the future, but this is kind of fun to do.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Forward to possibly doing it again.
Awesome. Well, I shall leave the stage for everybody. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.